During this current crisis, we have been working around the clock to increase our podcast and blog production to the highest possible level, knowing that at this time, every little bit counts. However, we're running into limitations in this effort due to our budget constraints. As all of our work relies on the power of donation, if you find this content of value, please consider supporting our mission so that we can continue our efforts at this time. I want to welcome back to Insight Myanmar podcast my good friend Ashin Sarana. This is a very different kind of interview than when we talked to him last year in Yangon. It's really wonderful to talk to you again, Usarana. I know this is not the best circumstances to be meeting again, but it's good to hear your voice and check in again.
Thank you very much. It's a joy to hear you too.
Right. So before we get into some of the more recent topics, I just want to reference some of your background. So we had a very long interview last year that listeners are encouraged to listen to, where we really went into your story and your biography. So we don't need to do that here. However, just to highlight some of the things we talked about, you're someone who's incredibly committed and dedicated to following the Buddhist teachings. You've been in robes many years. You've dedicated yourself to the discipline and the study. And yet, on top of this, you're also supremely dedicated to the country of Myanmar. As we discussed in our podcast interview last year, you didn't want to ordain in any other country. You've made fluency in the Burmese language a real priority during your stay in Myanmar so that you could be of greater service to your community. And you've involved yourself in the life of the local towns and the people who come to your monastery really in quite an extraordinary way. So, can you say a little bit about what Myanmar means to you and the role that the people and the culture have played in your spiritual journey?
Just a little note to what you said as the purpose of my learning the language. Frankly, I learned the language not in the first place to help others. I learned it so that I can help myself, so that I can learn the teachings of the Buddha from the old and new books and from the great masters of Myanmar who shared and who still share their experience in their meditation practice. I feel that if I have the full access and the full understanding to their teachings, then I can follow it better. And then, of course, if I'm successful, then I can share it. My attitude to Myanmar is very deep in all respects, because most of my meditation successes and progress and knowledge and abilities are entirely dependent on my presence in Myanmar and on the generosity of Myanmar people and on the patience of my teachers in Myanmar. So I'd say that I am deeply indebted to Myanmar, both as a country, also as people, and also as the place of Buddhism. So for me, if there is any opportunity whatsoever of course, within the limits of monks' rules, to somehow repay or support back um, the community of Myanmar people and Myanmar monks and Myanmar country, then I would like to do everything and anything I can.
Right. Right. And that's certainly what we're going to get into today with these topics. Before we move on to that, I just want to do a bit of a personal check in and just ask about how you're doing, how you're feeling, how your state is right now through all of this. So, how is that? How are you feeling?
Mm, I feel like on a roller coaster. The situation that is happening around me is very diverse and changing. It's changing not just every day, but several times a day. There are different feelings and different hopes and different attitudes and different ideas on or understanding on what's actually happening. So my feeling is diverse. Like now talking to you, I am very peaceful and happy, and satisfied. But that, of course, is not the way how I feel throughout the day.
Right. And how closely have you been following the news?
I am following them very, very closely, actually as close as possible. Sometimes I spend even 7, 8 hours a day just learning what's going on.
And is that typical for you as a monk? Do you usually follow the news this closely or even at all?
It's not typical for a monk, but it's typical for a monk who has responsibility for a monastery. So in my case, I'm responsible for 14 people's life and happiness and health and safety. So in my position, I don't have a way out. I believe that I need to know what's going on so that we can prepare ourselves. The monastery where I stay is entirely under, how to say that, it's under my service, or I don't know how to say this. So I am entirely in charge of all and everything that happens in the monastery. It's not my monastery, I'm not the owner, but I'm fully responsible for everything that happens here. And I have the the control to decide what's going on and how things will develop in this center. It's a tiny little monastery, somewhat hidden in a far away in the Mobi region. Far away means far to the west, and it's slightly complicated to come here. And I think that we are a little bit in secret, although I'm registered by my visa as with this particular place. So if somebody wanted to find me, it is possible. The news, the necessity to know what's going on is very important because although I said I'm responsible for 14 people, 12 of them, now 11 though, now 11 of them are Burmese. And 8 out of those 11 are young men who would like to become heroes. So they want to join the demonstrations outside. And they study what's going on, and they speak about it, and they worry, and of course they are in connection with their families and with their friends, and they try to make various plans and so on. So basically the political issue that's happening has fully creeped in the monastery through the fact that there are these boys who want to go outside to demonstrate, and they do go to demonstrate. It's basically not possible to stop them. This is their opportunity to show a value in their life. That's not my idea. That's what they think, or that's what I believe they think. And there's no way to stop. Like, Burmese people know what they want, or at least now, for sure, they know what they want, and there's no way to stop them. So if I like tie them by a rope and say, no, you will not go anywhere, I prohibit you, then somehow they will go anyway. And instead of being open to me as they are now, they will do what they want anyway, and also they will not tell me what's coming. So at least now I can keep fully track of where they're going, what they're doing, and they are very well aware of the danger that they are bringing with them every time they're leaving and they're coming. So that's why I believe I need to keep perfect knowledge and perfect update on what's going on in Myanmar, so that I know what is happening and what are the limits to which I can allow the workers to do whatever they want, and to which we need to get ready for a possible danger.
Right. And so you have these boys that have been in your monastery for a while and have been in your care, and you've looked after spiritually and through their development. What does it feel like when they want to go out and demonstrate, and knowing what's going on, the dangers they face, yet also the freedoms that they're trying to preserve? What is your feeling as you watch them in the mornings walk out to go to those demonstrations?
So far, I think they went just 3 times. Today is 10th of March, so during about a month of demonstrations, they have gone for demonstrations around 3 times. The first time when they went, there was pretty much no killing, so it was quite fine. But when they went the second, third time, then uh, me and the lady, the chief donor of this monastery, we are basically preparing them for the fact that they will possibly die, be injured, or be imprisoned during the demonstrations. I'm not sure whether they accept that this is possible for them, but they do learn. They they learn how to run when a policeman or a soldier is chasing them. There are special techniques. They learn how to deal with a tear gas bomb if somebody throws it at them, or how to prevent themselves from falling down, and what are the things that they need to carry with themselves. And all of this is like totally off the purpose of my coming to Myanmar, totally off my life as a monk. But there's just no way to not know it. You could say, well, so just ask them to go. But how far is that a compassionate decision?
Right. Right. So you mentioned how closely you're following the news these days. Before February, what was your relationship to the news? Did you keep up on what was going on in the world or in Myanmar? Probably not as much as now, but to what extent were you following current events?
That is so good answer. Thank you so much for this answer. This is extremely important for your, or let's say our audience, um, so that they do not get the misunderstanding that I follow politics. In fact, until like 6th or 7th of February, I had no clue what is happening. I had no idea that there is something wrong. Maybe I heard that military is at the government doing at the parliament premises or whatever, but I had no idea what exactly is going on. I had no understanding, and Myanmar politics and Myanmar situation is one of the last things ever I would ever read on. So if I know something, then it's because some of my supporters come and they, and they inform me. So whether I like it or not, I just see it in the. I use Viber, so I see it in their message. But otherwise, I know nothing. I had no knowledge about what's happening in Myanmar. It started by 6th or 7th of February, when when the big demonstration started, and I think by that time, I'm not sure, but I think by that time the boys wanted to go for demonstrations for their first demonstrations. And by that time, I started to read new news about this, and I started to realize how serious this is. So that's where I gradually increased in learning more and more and more. First, learning what are the sources that I need to follow, and then gradually following those sources. Like following news is something so foreign to me. I'm a person who doesn't read newspapers or watch news. I'm exactly the kind of guy, who has no clue what's going on. When I visited Australia, we went on a trip to see the Brisbane Library. And as we were walking on the sidewalk, there was a picture. There was like a white stop sign with a face in the stop sign, and that was, I think, 2000. I don't know, 2014, 2013. I don't remember, and 2015, I think. Anyway, so I had an assistant with me, a young gentleman, and I'm asking me, hey, why are there these white stop signs painted on the sidewalk? And he says, well, this is Donald Trump. The people don't wish that Donald Trump walks over the sidewalk. And I say, and who is that? Who is Donald Trump? And he says, well, Donald Trump was elected as the American president. So hopefully now you can understand to what extent I was following news.
Yeah. Okay. I think that gives the picture. Yeah, that's extraordinary. So you've gone from someone that did not know that Donald Trump was elected the president of America, that did not know that a coup happened, to absorbing the news 8 hours a day.
Yes.
Yeah, so in your monastery, how you mentioned how your monastery has been affected in terms of these boys going out. In terms of the actual monastery culture, routines, environment, practice, is that also being affected this month?
Yes. It was. It's a very strange situation. Perhaps we could say opportunate, but the word opportunate is maybe too positive for the situation. There was this COVID-19 restriction lately by, I think, November. November, December. COVID-19 started to spread out even in Myanmar after several months of basically no new COVID cases. And so we stopped to walk for alms round, and and I have decided, that's all after I have discussed with everybody what do they think about it, and we agreed on, okay, so if you think that you're responsible for our safety, then that's the way it is. So we stopped to walk for alms round. We are fully supported. We have everything we need, everything we would ever dream of. We have that. We have stopped walking for alms round. All of the workers, they must always tell me when they go outside, even if they just go just to have a snack outside, they have to tell me every time. We have reduced the going shopping. So I don't go shopping, but the workers in the kitchen, they go. And instead of going like 3-4 times a week, now they're allowed to go only 1 time a week. And this has created a kind of situation where we are all the time at home, so to speak. We are all the time, we are in the monastery. So going outside is very rare, and it's usually only for serious reasons. But that started with COVID-19. Then, when the coup happened, uh, although COVID-19 doesn't seem to be a serious issue these days, the coup is a serious issue these days. So basically, as the COVID-19 seems to be disappearing, the coup has supplied it or substituted it fully. So whatever were the restrictions that we had, we continue in those same restrictions. So there is no real difference. It just makes the situation to continue.
So as the coup has progressed, do you feel some kind of difference in the monastery grounds, or has it affected you in some other way, or it's just kind of a continuation with what started with COVID-19?
I think I am very lucky. I think both me and the monastery and everybody here, we are very lucky to be here and to be here at this time because basically nothing touches us. Like the only reason why we are affected is because we read news. Perhaps if we didn't read news at all, then we would know nothing. But don't take the offense. And I think anyway, either you or somebody else will. We have a beautiful black cat here, which the yogis demanded that I allow it to stay in the monastery. It's now climbing a tree. I see it from the window. And I'm thinking like, hey, what about this cat? Like now there was like this coup. There was maybe 10 days after the coup. And I was like thinking how to deal with that mentally. There's the coup and I'm a monk and I'm in a monastery and the coup is in the big towns. So how does that affect me? And I'm thinking about the cat, like, look at the cat. The cat doesn't care at all. The cat doesn't care who's there, who has power, or what are the people doing, or what are the dangers. The cat doesn't care at all. At all. There's like zero thought. The cat has not a single thought throughout its life about who's in the government, or what are the people in charge of Myanmar, or how the people suffer or not suffer, or what's the danger. The cat has zero thoughts of this throughout its life. And I was now you may think that this is like praising the cat, but no, I'm speaking purely ironically. So the cat is a cat; it's an animal. We are humans. Should we as humans reduce ourselves to the cat's situation? So that's why I asked you for understanding in advance, because I know how this is strong. So should I reduce myself to the cat's thinking and say, well, this is not my problem, I don't care, and I will continue on my catwalk, which is a nice pun. So I think we need to consider the situation, and this is an opportunity where we can help. I do not need to help by going to demonstrations and trying to stop the police while providing my body to be shot. But what I can do and what the people really need is this kind of solace, this kind of love, this kind of help, where first they need to know that I'm on their side, that I support their happiness and their health. And second, they need to know that there is somebody who loves them. There is somebody who is thinking about them and who supports their well-being. So as monk, I have this special power, not because of me, Ashin Sarana, but because of the monkhood itself. I have this special power where I can support the people in peace, in happiness, in calm. I can just tell them that there is love and that love is available. It's available in their hearts. And it's also coming from my heart towards their hearts. And the people really need it. It's not like whether it's okay or useful or whether it has any effect. No, 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 no. The people want it and they need it and they expect it. So this is this is, I think, the main way how I can help, how I can help, how I can support.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And when I hear you say that, I'm thinking another way to understand your decision process and what you're going through is to some sense, you do have a certain privilege that Burmese people and even Burmese monks don't in terms of how much you're at risk and how much this affects you and how much you want to be involved. And you're very much making a decision to want to involve yourself in it and open your heart and care. And it's interesting to contrast that with other foreign monks and meditators that are in the country that are really not quite so bothered with what's going on. There was one monk who wrote on a social media post recently, quote, "No need to worry about us. We are fine in our faraway mountain monastery bubble. Monks should not get involved in politics and should have more important things to do." And then a later post said, "I've been looking forward to the Myanmar internet being cut off, but it does not seem to be happening. I guess that is a good thing for the people here." So when I read posts like this, they reflect someone that has privilege and is using that privilege to not want to be involved or open to the wider reality that is happening, which is very different than what you have just described of why you feel that it's so urgent and necessary for you to open your heart and to be involved with the people around you. So I'm curious when you hear other foreign monks taking a position like that of just, well, uh, what's outside the monastery walls is not my concern. The practice is the same. This is of no concern or use for me. Uh, and you've taken a very different path. How does that make you feel hearing a statement like that?
Yes, thank you very much. There is a very big distinction among monks. There are monks who teach and who are responsible, and there are monks who learn and who are not yet allowed to be responsible. So the monks who learn, the monks who meditate, and of course the monks who teach also learn. You know, it doesn't mean that a monk one time starts to teach and then he doesn't need to meditate. No, 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 no. There are periods, and those periods are also different for monks. So different monks in different times either are, let's call it, to simplify it very much, they're in the learning period, and there are times when they're in the teaching period. It is by no means um, is praiseworthy to turn on any electronic device, perhaps except from old alarm clock, while a monk is following meditation, intensive meditation retreat, or while a monk is following studies, serious studies of the scriptures. I personally would not recommend, and this is how I studied and how I meditated intensively, I would not recommend using any other electronic device than very simple old alarm clock. If that needs to be electronic, there are non-electronic as well, while following an intensive meditation retreat. There is no way how your meditation, how anybody's meditation, or my meditation as well, would progress if I was following the situation in the way I'm following. But what I want to say is that there is another kind of monks, and that's the responsible monks. So what I learned in meditation retreats in the Czech Republic, which are following Mahasi Center, not sure where the teachers got this idea from, but it's an idea that basically shaped my my attitude towards my responsibility. They say that the teacher's responsibility is to create peaceful and safe environment for his or her students. So both my teachers, my preceptor and my meditation teacher, decided that I will teach meditation, that I must teach meditation. I am now, therefore, teaching meditation, and therefore, I'm responsible for the peace and safety of my students. And I still have students in the monastery. I have two students, a Japanese nun and an Italian monk. And I take myself as the only person who has this responsibility to create peace and safety for themselves. And that is what makes me different from me when I follow an intensive meditation retreat. I actually plan to follow it with perhaps after 5-6 days. I plan to take 4 weeks of silence and basically time travel 4 weeks forward, because I feel that I'm losing my powers. I'm losing my mental powers through the lack of meditation. I do still meditate, but much less than otherwise. And I would like to regain my abilities to resist, to understand, to be patient, to be mindful, and see after 1 month if the things don't get better. I believe I might have more mental power to support the people around me. And who knows, maybe my chanting and my meditation of loving kindness would be more powerful. That I don't know. But what I know is that if I can stay peaceful, patient, mindful, then I can help the people around me much more.
Yeah, right, that's beautiful, that's wonderful, and with that lack of meditation, I know that you, as many of us, have been passing very hard days of mental distress, trauma. I don't know about what experiences you've had in Myanmar, but I've from the kinds of noises in the streets and the loud bangs that people are already having PTSD there, and you referenced to me yesterday this nightmare that you had of terror that I think is not uncommon for many people going through it, and I wonder if you can share that story.
Yes, life in Myanmar is like on the verge of is on the verge of reality, fairy tale, and nightmare at the same time. It's like a mix. Um, People are spreading fake news uh, every day, fake news which are truly fake news, um, like that the US is keeping 40 military drones in France ready to attack the Myanmar military, and that kind of thing. So, or that the general who's leading all of this is hiding in China. No, no way. He's happily in Myanmar and doing whatever he's doing. But reading and seeing all of these things is affecting my day and my night. It affects my emotions. I personally do not cry when something is lost or when somebody is not happy. For whatever reason, I usually cry when somebody is successful, when something happens. It's the happy tears, or certainly you have an English word for that, tears of joy. So that's the kind of emotions I'm going through, and I like read news and I see, wow, these people they made this fantastic solution, and they were able to resolve the military attack, and write the next message, right? The next news is like, this person actually died right there, or then the military actually, like in the evening, they came to the monastery and they arrested the people, or something else. So it's really like a roller coaster, and this affects also my sleep. So when I go to sleep, I'm like thinking, like, what could be done? Is there anything I could ever do to support, to do anything at all? Because it seems like, hey, this is the time when I can like repay my debt, to the Myanmar people and to Myanmar for all this incredible um, uh, incredible good that they have done for me. And I think, like, how what can I do? how much can I do, and what can I do, and where can I do it? So thinking like this when I'm going to sleep, I fall asleep, and of course, then I have dreams. And I had a dream that I'm learning these days. I'm learning how to care for, how to teach early children in early childhood age, because I got an opportunity to teach basic Buddhism to children 3 to 5 years. And so I decided, hey, I don't know how to do that, so I need to follow a course for that. So I'm following a nice course for this, and I had a dream that I'm with some of the other students. We are in a hospital, and there's the teacher, and the teacher comes, and she takes one of the students to the like inside to the clinic, and we are waiting in the waiting room. And while they're in the clinic and we're in the waiting room, we hear jets flying in the sky and shooting through the glass windows. And so I am the lucky one who's behind a wall, so I do not get any shot. While all of the others, they are there right in front of the window as the jets are shooting at them. And then I wake up. As I told you, like now I may seem to be like happy, smiling, all is nice, but it's not the way how I spend my days.
That's really just such a stunning dream as you interpret it, because you're in this role of taking care of these kids, which is what you're actually doing in real life. And you're at a hospital, which is a place where one is administered to and in a vulnerable state and being taken care of. And then the last thing you would expect in a hospital is a military jet shooting bullets into it, and all of the children that you're supposed to be taking care of are exposed to these bullets that are crashing through the windows into them, while you, with your privilege of being a foreigner and being exempt from, maybe not entirely, but certainly somewhat more safe than the average Burmese person, are behind a wall and safe. And so it really seemed like these symbolic things in your own life and emotions you're dealing with came out in the details of that dream. Yeah. So you initially reached out to me a week or two ago to publish an open letter on my platform. And at that time, you chose to do it anonymously. Uh, then, sometime after that, you actually read from that letter with your own voice. You published it in your own YouTube channel, uh, the same words with different images in the background. So, what I'm seeing is, after like a couple weeks of careful contemplation of what to do and how you want to respond, you decided that you very much wanted to come on this episode and speak very publicly. So it seems like there's this evolution in your thinking of what your role is and should be. Uh, can you say more about how you came to understand about how you wanted to be involved, and how you came to define what your responsibility was at this time, and how you wanted to take actions and what actions to do?
I need to be extremely careful, because you may think that I'm boasting, but we need to be realistic. I am famous in Myanmar. I really am famous, and people really know me. People stop me on roads. If I go outside, I don't go outside these days, but if I go outside, people stop me on the road and say, "Oh, I know you. I have heard your Dhamma talk," and they pay respect to me. Hey, I came here to this tiny little village, which is like really totally hidden. It's I don't know how to say, it's really far away from Yangon. It's just tiny little village, one of 10,000s in Myanmar. And we just go somewhere to release a mouse that we caught in the monastery, in the forest. And as we are going on the road, just people stop their cars, they get out, and they pay respect to me. They say, "Venerable Sir, I know you. I have seen your Dhamma talk." So I am famous. I'm famous all around Myanmar. And of course, the military also know me. Perhaps they do not remember me because they meet many monks, but they have heard of me, and they even have read some of my writings about monks not touching money. And at that time, during democracy period, they liked it. What they think about me and what is the situation now in military in relation to me, I don't think that there's any situation at all, because They have other monks that they need to deal with, and I don't think that they ever think about me at all, even with a single thought throughout the time. But truth is that people know me, and if they see me, they know what's going on. They know that I am the monk who teaches that monks should not touch money. I'm the monk who follows Vinaya, the monk who teaches meditation, the monk who teaches Dhamma on Facebook. So people do know me, and I really need to be careful with every single word, with every single move I do. So the text that you have published is published anonymously, and if I wrote that kind of text today, again, let's say a second one, it would also have to be published anonymously. The video that we made, you can see that it is credited to good friends, not to me, also for the important reason that it's not made by me. The video is made by somebody else, although the voice, here's the revelation, is mine. But I need to be really careful, with what I publish, what I say. I started to do the video because I saw the soldiers in a video. I saw them shooting in people's windows in their apartments. So basically, soldiers are going by the road in the downtown, and they just shoot randomly in windows, in people's windows in the apartment blocks. And then I found so disgusting, so wrong, that I thought, hey, this is really wrong. Because you can imagine, the old people. I can imagine my old grandma saying, well, so just don't go to the demonstrations, don't say anything, and you're fine. That's what I can imagine, that some people have that attitude. But no, you're not fine if you don't go for demonstrations and don't do anything. Because the soldiers, they're shooting randomly in people's windows. They destroy people's positions randomly. You've perhaps heard of that. They shot a Muslim woman who was going to a market, who was not related to the demonstrations at all. So no, sorry, it's not possible to be not involved. By your very existence, you happen to be involved, whether you like it or not. So I thought, hey, this is quite a bad thing. I need to do something, and that's where I wrote the text. And later, a Burmese gentleman prepared the video for it, and another lady prepared Burmese translation for it. It is published anonymously, and I published it against prohibition of so many people. So many Burmese people said, don't publish it, don't do that, they will catch you, they will come to your monastery. And I think, no problem, I will keep it on my kamma. So if my kamma is that the video will become famous, most probably the police will come and catch me. If my kamma is that the video will not become famous, then police will not come and they will not catch me. So I said, well, let's wait for my kamma. So with this particular video, it was not successful. So successful means that it goes to thousands of views. This one didn't go to thousands of views. So I'm like, okay, so that's my kamma, that's the way it is. And when I told it to one of the supporters, she said, well, to protect you, we didn't share the video. And before I published the video, I got email and also message in Viber from different people who say, Venerable Sir, your voice is very clearly your voice. Everybody will know it's you. What about if we do the reading for the video? They suggested that they would remove my voice and they would read the text instead of me. So I said, well, I think if you as Burmese people will read it, it might not have as much influence on the international community. That, of course, is my feeling, my personal feeling, which can be wrong. That's how I felt. So then the solution was that I didn't publish it in my Facebook profile, where it would be successful anyway, because there I have now over 100,000 followers, so that would go very fast and very far. I published it in the YouTube channel and in our special Facebook group where we do everyday loving kindness meditation live. These days we have added there wishing, basically a little bit of magic. You can ask me that later. So we are doing a little bit of magic and loving kindness every day with the people in that group. So there I shared it. Then what the people realized, and what we also realized, that it would be somewhat safe if somebody else took the video and they upload it in their account if they don't live in Myanmar. So there are many Burmese people who live in the U.S. and I'm very much in a close contact with them. Many Burmese people who live in the U.S. And so they decided to upload it in their account. So now it is, and also some Czech people have uploaded it in their accounts. So this is how it's done to protect my safety. But truth is that I didn't change in my transparency. What has also happened very recently, is that I started to post things on my Facebook wall, which I didn't do for many weeks, maybe for a month. I didn't post almost anything, and then these days I'm posting one or two things every day. They're basically hidden messages where I try to suggest to the people that the present situation is really not good and that they need to do something. It's a kind of support, it's a kind of encouragement that their effort has a meaning. Different messages. Either I'm applying some of my Buddhist knowledge from the scriptures. So I'm explaining, for example, recently I explained the difference between human and animal. Or today I hope to send a message on how to find the 10 armies of Mara. All is very strictly according to scriptures with direct references and sometimes Pali quotations. But that also is very carefully written. I'm careful about every single word that I write there so that it carries the message. But at the same time, if the military finds out, they cannot use it easily against me.
Right, although people that are detained by the military don't really need to have a logical charge against them. And so you describe some of these activities you've done. You wrote an anonymous letter that is anonymous no more. You have a video that will eventually probably get more well known. You are using your vast social media platform to begin to carefully write about some of your concerns. So you're speaking up both here in English on this podcast and other ways that you've put your voice out there. You're speaking definitely to your followers in Burmese in very public ways. And you are a very famous person, as you say. You are known for your Dhamma teachings in Burmese. So, are you worried at all that you might face personal consequences for this stand and this decision you're making?
I'm ready for it. I'm ready. I put my main data on a hard disk, and the hard disk is somewhere else in case if the military comes and they destroy the technical properties we have here and arrest me. I'm basically ready for everything. I'm ready that they will come, they'll destroy the property. I'm ready that they will arrest me. I'm ready that they will expel me. My donors are ready. They're not ready, but they have made everything prepared. Even a flight ticket to the US is already purchased for me. So just ready. I already have a place in the Czech Republic, which we arranged with my elder brother, where I would stay if I'm expelled. So yes, I'm basically somewhat like waiting until the military comes and catch me. But at the same time, I don't want to be caught, because if I'm caught, I can do nothing. So it's like on one side, I want to support the people. I want to, as I say, repay my debt. But on the other side, I don't want to disappoint, the Burmese people by negligence or by doing something wrong that they would, not appreciate from the very beginning.
Yeah, that's and on top of all that, you also wanna take a month to regain your mental stability, so that's a lot you got going on there.
Yes, some people could say that I'm going into hiding. I'm not sure. Like the main reason for me going there, I feel like suffocated. suffocating because going through these news is extremely important, and at the same time it's just something that I don't want to do. I like, regardless what is in the news, whether it is success or unsuccess, or people inventing something nice, or people being killed, regardless what is in the news, this is nothing I ever wanted to do in my life, even for a day. I'm like fine, like reading about what's going on in the world, let's say once a month. That's all good. But I spend with it so much time, and all the life that I would like to have, is basically stuck on this. We have beautiful classes with the Burmese adults who live in the US about books. We read a certain amount of pages, 20, 30 pages of certain books every week. And then we come and then we discuss what we read in that Dhamma books. So, for example, these days we read this huge, we could say even Bible of Pa Ausiador, who has written this huge book. One is one volumed, and the other one is 5 volumes. We are now reading the one volumed one, and this is something that takes a lot of time for me to prepare to read. We have 3 groups like this. Each group is reading different book, and then we meet together, and they ask me questions about those things that are in the book, because there are many Pali words, and the Burmese people are not that well versed in Pali. So I'm missing out on the duties. I don't read those books because I read news. I have beautiful classes with children. I have around 10 classes a week with Burmese children who live in Jamaica and in the USA. They are on basic Buddhism, and we meet there and we learn. But now, because of the military, they have blocked the internet early in the morning. So we have the classes early in the morning, so the classes are not there. So I'm missing out on my duties because of the situation, and also because of my reading on the news. It is something that is basically indeed suffocating my life. It's suffocating the purpose of that for what I live. And I would like to put myself back and get more strength to resist this eagerness, to study and to know more and to understand, and just keep some kind of like basic outlets. Okay, what's happening? Be satisfied with little of information and do more. These days, I feel that I'm listening and reading a lot and doing very little.
Right. And I'm sure that the role that you're playing now, it's changed in light of the current crisis, although you're still in a somewhat similar position of tutoring and helping them. So, what kinds of concerns are people coming to you now with, and what kinds of counsel are you providing during this period?
It's the concern about loving kindness. How should I do loving kindness in this period? That's basically the one concern. I cannot even think about any other concern that people would come up to me and ask me. The number one, and perhaps the only one concern, the only one question and desire for counseling is, Venerable Sir, how should I do loving kindness in this time, in this place? And I do have an answer, and I'm basically answering that question every day during our daily magic and loving kindness meetings. So what I do is, in the afternoon, because previously it was early in the morning and without the magic, only loving kindness. Early in the morning, we would meet with our group online in Facebook, and we were meditating 45 minutes loving kindness practice. And now early in the morning, internet is shut down. So now we have switched it to afternoon. And in the afternoon, what we do is we first start this magic. I call it magic to make it more interesting for the audience, but of course, it's not the kind of magic you might perhaps imagine. We recite. So we recite wishes. It's called the asseveration of truth. So we basically say, indeed, the 9 qualities of the Buddha, 6 qualities of Dhamma, and 9 qualities of the Sangha are true. And by the fact that they are true, may things happen. And those things are specifically said. And that means may those who don't have wisdom gain wisdom. May those good people, those who are good people, may they be in freedom. And may those who are doing bad deeds stop doing bad deeds. So this we are reading every day in Burmese. After that, we recite the Patana, the magic spell number 1 of Burmese. They would recite the 24 conditions, causes, effects of so-called Patana. It takes just a few seconds, but it's believed to be very, very powerful. And then we recite the special chanting, the special protective chanting for freedom. It's a freedom from imprisonment. Because of course we know that there are many people imprisoned in Myanmar. Now I think over 1,000 imprisoned people in Myanmar, only for political reasons. And so we chant together these chantings, and then we do loving kindness. And my explanation on how to do loving kindness towards evil people is that we do loving kindness, we do triple loving kindness to evil people. So there's simple, because it's one, simple loving kindness towards the good people, and there's triple loving kindness towards the evil people. So what's triple there? Number 1, we wish them that they stop doing evil deeds. That's the first part of that triple loving kindness. Second one, we wish them that they do only good deeds. And number 3, we wish them that they are in peace. Because being in peace in Buddhism is never understood as being in peace after doing an evil act. In Buddhism, being peaceful, whatever is pleasant feeling, it can come, not necessarily, this would be debatable, but in most cases, in every case, basically, it can come only as a result of a good deed. So if a person does an evil deed and right after that they feel nice, the nice feeling in Buddhism is not the result of the evil deed, but it's a result of some other good, of a good deed that they did in the past. It's just that it seems as if the good feeling was related to the evil deed, but in fact it's not. So when we wish others to be peaceful, we do not wish them to be peaceful thanks to their evil. We wish them to be peaceful thanks to the good deeds they did. Now, of course, it's very easy to come to the conclusion that those who are causing us suffering these days, that they do only evil. I am not sure about that. I don't know, but I'm not sure. I will keep it in the I'm not sure part. And even if they did only evil deeds throughout the billions and trillions of lives in the cycle of rebirth, now they can stop. They can stop. How can they stop? By the power of anatta, by the power of not self. There is no self. There is no permanent evil being. We cannot say that they're evil by their intrinsic reality that is permanent. No, Buddhism teaches that there is no self. That means that anything can change. So with this, you could say immensely optimistic view, I would of course call it realistic view. With this very, very nice positive attitude, we wish the evil people that they stop evil, that the desire to do evil disappears, and that they get the desire to do good deeds, and they also do them. And finally, that they enjoy peace as the result of not doing evil and doing the good deeds. So this is how I counsel them, how I answer their questions on how to do loving kindness today.
Right, right. That's beautiful. That's very powerful. And certainly the Buddha's teachings were meant not just for times of peace, but also can be applied even in periods of instability. So, how has your own practice or your faith been a strength during these days?
My practice, yes, I don't meditate as much. I do not meditate too little, but I do not meditate enough. I absolutely don't meditate enough. I take it as meditating over 2 hours a day is the proper meditation time. I found out that meditating 1 hour a day is doing with my mind something else than what 2 hours do with my mind. And this something else is like really something else. It's a different life. It's a different experience. It's a different feedback that I get from others. So I barely get to. I get 1 hour a day these days, but as I say, it's not what I want, and absolutely not enough regarding what I need. I would need the power of like 8 hours of meditation a day.
Hmm. Right, I imagine, don't we all? So we're talking a bit about Dhamma practice for people on our side, we can say, on this side of the aisle. But there's also a way to look at the Dhamma practice or the Buddhist belief of the other side. And we had little warning before this interview, I should say. I had we got in touch just an hour or two before to confirm the time, but in that hour or two, I actually put out a quick message in my on my platform, just letting people know I was going to be interviewing a monk that was going to be speaking about these issues and wanting to inquire if there were specific questions people had. So throughout this interview, I'll also be peppering some of the conversation with questions that came from Facebook users that they wanted you to touch on. And this is one of them leading up to this question. So one user wanted to ask you, looking at this other side of the generals and the military, he wants to know what Dhamma concepts can be used to persuade the military to stop shooting protesters.
That's the thing, that nothing. That the Buddha actually has suggested, and I don't have reference, so you can easily totally defeat me by saying that it's not in the scriptures. But I have heard that the Buddha has decided that we actually do not ask a person who kills. We do not ask the person not to kill. We should not ask a person who steals not to steal, and so on and so on. We don't ask a person who tells lies not to tell lies, because if we do that, they will just be angry and not stop anyway. So I think that that's the thing, that the Buddha actually has already predicted that saying these things, hey, don't kill, hey, don't steal, hey, don't tell lies, will be useless, or it might be detrimental. So there must be a different solution, which if I knew, I would perhaps get a Nobel Prize of Peace. I don't know what's the solution, but I think that we need to be patient, and we need to be persistent in that what we believe is good. We need to compare our beliefs of what is good with the Buddha's teachings as good Buddha's followers, but at the same time, expecting that things will turn out this way or that way might not be. It's of course useful. It's of course useful to discuss it, so it may lead to some result. But I feel that that number one thing, we need to persist in the good that we follow and in supporting the good that we believe in.
Right. And a follow up question to that, asked by the same user, is what practical steps would you propose to start changing military leaders' minds at the highest levels of government?
That's basically the same thing. Let me let me think. We need to watch and listen. I think I am the kind of person. So I remember when I was a kid, I of course played a lot of games online, and I'm the kind of person who first likes to create like very very good defense and very safe defense, and only then, when I feel that I'm perfectly safe, then go out. So that's basically how I live. I first want to gather information as much as I can. I of course cannot know everything, and I can be wrong in anything I say. But I try as much as I can gather as much knowledge as is available. And then when I feel that I am really, really rich in all the knowledge, then go out to share. That's also why the video and why the text came out relatively late, a month after the problem started, because I was gathering information. I was learning about the situation from both sides. I had, maybe I still have, but I don't use it. I have a connection to one of the majors, one of the people in the military, a direct connection. So I also called him and I was talking with him. Hey, what's going on, and so on and so on. He's not one of the generals, and it seems he has zero power over anything at all. He's a retired major, and I think he's happy that he's where he is and safe and not needing to decide anything. Truth is that I personally would first suggest to learn what's going on inside the minds, inside the community of the military. I would like to suggest, I personally cannot do this, but I think it would be interesting to somehow infiltrate, but this is not the necessarily negative word. What I mean, somehow, penetrate into the system and into the knowledge and into the information that they have inside the military, and then see what are the weak spots, and then work with the weak spots. I personally do not support killing. I don't like killing at all. The problem is, even if I do like killing, because of course there are thoughts about this all the time, but even if I support killing, there's no killing in war, at least in Myanmar, which would not involve civilians. And we know already yesterday the military attacked the Karen minority, the ethnic minority, and innocent people who did nothing at all. They had to run away from their houses. And this is just the start. I think things will grow, and they will be very, very bad. I think war has started yesterday. So I really don't like when innocent people die. Like, if somebody decides, hey, I'm ready to die, I will go and fight, and both of the sides are ready to die, hey, then this is not my problem. The Buddha also didn't say anything about kings waging wars, apart from one special exception. What I really don't like is when the war involves, innocent people. So I do not like it. What I mean, infiltrate and penetrate into the weak spots of the military, is to find out what they really want, what they really desire, and see if there is any space for gradual negotiation, but not the negotiation when they would get something. Of course, I mean negotiation where they would get nothing. But there are weak spots which are important for them. And I'm sure that there is some more information that people can get, that people somehow can find out regarding the military, and that they can work through those weak spots. There are already some are known through the military's anger, like they're now angry that people are doing demonstrations. They were not so angry in the beginning. They're attempting to recover their $1 billion from the US. It didn't seem like they wanted to do that in the beginning. So it seems that they care about certain things. And the more they care, the more we can address those weak spots, and perhaps persuade them that what they're doing is evil, and turn them on the good side.
So, another question coming from a Facebook user, and this is an exact quote of what she wanted to ask you. She says, "For 50 years, I have been asked by Buddhists in the West, can you explain why such dreadful things happen in such a strongly Buddhist country like Burma? Meanwhile, I have run out of words to answer them. I have to hand the question down to younger generations. Please answer as honestly as you can. I do not want to hear excuses."
I personally believe that this is nothing special. I believe that there have been actually much bigger massacres. I don't like to talk about it because then it very obviously is reducing the severity of this problem. It's not like that it may reduce or that it may seem. No, it is. As soon as I start to talk about the very bad massacres in the past in Buddhist countries, then it is reducing the present situation. So not sure who is the guilty one, whether the one who asked or me who's answering. If you look in Cambodia, like look at Cambodia, Pol Pot, the was that Rouge? I forgot which Rouge. Khmer Rouge, of course. Which other? Khmer Rouge. Like, look at Khmer Rouge. Like, the massacres that were there is incomparable to anything that ever happened in Myanmar. And it's not just about Cambodia. Like, if we look at the Buddha's time, the countries of the Buddha's time, and the pre-Ahsoka, the pre-Dhamma Ahsoka time, so we have the King Ashoka in India, 3rd century before Christ, or somewhere around that. And so there was this Gala Ahsoka or Chanda Ahsoka who was this evil Ahsoka who was like killing and massacring anybody who he didn't like. And then he turned to Dhamma, and then he was good. But even when he was killing, the country had a lot of monks, a lot of monasteries. We could happily say that the country was a Buddhist country. So why did that happen? Well, such is the reality of the world. I have my theory that when there are extremes, there are always both sides of the extremes. So so in the Buddha's time, like monks would be forced by the kings to have sex with ladies, so that the kings would like forcefully disrobe the monks. The torture, the kind of torture done by kings in the Buddha's time is something that we just cannot even imagine. It's incredible how they would cut off pieces of the prisoners' bodies, and then have the prisoners to eat the pieces of their bodies, and they would dig holes in the ground, and then like cover their bodies in the ground so that only their head stuck out of the ground, and then they would cover that with dry grass, and they would just burn the dry grass as the bodies as the heads were sticking out from the grass, basically. And then they would take a plow and plow those heads, or they would tie up people's bodies, people's limbs on ropes, which were dragged by horses or by cows, and then they would have the cows or horses to run away, basically tearing away the limbs of the people. This is a kind of torture that we cannot imagine today. And I wonder whether these extremes of evil are the natural supplement for the extremes of the good. So in Myanmar, there are many people who I believe are enlightened. Certainly, they may be fully enlightened people, but that would be a different debate. And this would be one extreme of extremely, extremely good people. And naturally, and again, this is my personal theory, which you are most welcome to criticize, and naturally, there is another side of the extreme, and that would be the evil extreme. Interestingly, the Burmese people believe it themselves, at least some. Yesterday, I heard from an old man who also helps in our monastery, who said that this is Myanmar, that he said, you will never find Myanmar-like people in the world. In Myanmar, if there is anything, there will always be the extreme of that. There will be the extreme of good and extreme of evil. So maybe that's why it happens, that there are the extreme good, extreme bad. Of course, as I said, this will reduce the severity of the problem, and this is very, very bad idea. But for the time being, that's what I'm working on.
Right, right. Thank you. Thank you for tackling that answer, and hopefully it satisfied the person who posed the question. I think that there's also some misunderstanding and even perhaps some ignorance among foreign practitioners in terms of some at least, in terms of how these outer worldly events are really going to affect the internal life of the meditator or monk. There's kind of this belief that, well, Burma is a Buddhist country, and no matter who rules it, they've always been Buddhist. And this has been the case with dictators and kings and presidents and everyone else. It's the natural order of things is going to continue going on. And there was one meditator who wrote something on social media I want to read to you that really illustrates the thinking behind this view very specifically. So he wrote, quote, Buddhism was founded, grew, and thrived under the governments of emperors and kings who were much more autocratic than the current military rulers of Myanmar. Therefore, as far as Buddhism is concerned, I do not see any problem whether Myanmar is governed by the Tatmadaw, the military, or the NLD, the National League for Democracy. Members of the Myanmar military are themselves Buddhist. The coup has nothing to do with suppressing Buddhism. Buddhism is not in any way threatened in Myanmar. There is no suppression of Buddhism or any religious freedom there. End quote. So, my question is to be clear, how do you see Buddhism and the Sangha and Dhamma practice overall being impacted if the coup were to succeed? Do you buy into the logic of this argument that it's going to persist and thrive under any condition? Or do you see the practice of Buddhism and meditation and the nature of the Sangha changing under different types of rule in the country?
We have a chicken farm here close to the monastery, and at times they somehow neglect the cleaning of the chicken feces. And my feeling, which will now perhaps create a disgust in many of those who still made it to this point of listening to us. I think, like when you're reading the article to me, it's as if you took the chicken feces, put it into one cartload, and then threw it on my head. That's how it feels to me. My belief is that these reactions, I was like worrying that somebody could have this thought, but I thought no living being in the world would ever think like this. And then when you're reading it to me, it's like the worst nightmare ever, became reality. I believe that this is caused by lack of knowledge about history, because we need to understand the circumstances. Like the idea that the military poses no threat to Buddhism, or that it's basically the same for the Buddhists, whether there's military or whether there's democracy, is very clear display of lack of knowledge about history in Myanmar, about history in Cambodia, and history in the other Buddhist countries as well. Thailand, for example, would be the positive side, where it evolved somewhat right. Of course, it's not perfect there, but for the Buddhist needs, I would say that it's better than we would ever dream of, and other countries as well. So there's a lot of historical knowledge that this person, I believe, is missing, and that the person may like to study. There are beautiful, detailed articles on 2007 revolution and 1988 revolution in Myanmar, which the person may like to read and learn from, because they contain very important details that show us why the military role is not appreciated. Hey, 1962 started military rule in Myanmar, and the real problem was in 1988. Why do you think that? Why do you think 1962 is not the year of the problem? Why is it 1988? It is because exactly what the person thought is what the people thought, or many people, I suppose, thought in 1962. They thought, hey, who cares? Okay, so the military took it. We will wish them to be happy, and we will continue to meditate. But then in 1988, one big thing happened, and it's called poverty. When people have nothing to put into their mouths, not only that they cannot put things to their mouths, but they also cannot support monks. And in our scriptures, it's written that this is exactly the reason why the Buddha's teachings will disappear. It will disappear when the people have not enough food to eat, and therefore they don't have enough food to support monks. Then, because monks are not well supported, they will not accept students. When they do not accept students, they will not teach students. And therefore, teaching will gradually disappear. This is exactly written in our Pali scriptures. So the poverty caused by the 1988 government, whatever were the details, and the same poverty again in 2007, were the reasons for people's disappointment. It's not because people would love to have internet 24 hours, which they don't have, and the person who wrote the articles, I suppose, has internet 24 hours a day. It's not because not more than 5 people would be allowed to go outside their home, which I'm sure that the person you're talking about is allowed. It's not because the people would not be allowed to go outside of their house, I think after 8 or 9 o'clock, even alone, which the person who wrote the article you read to me certainly is allowed. And again, these are not the reasons for the demonstrations today. The main reason is that the military will again put people into poverty and take the people's money for their own purposes. Another reason is there's poverty in eating, but there's another poverty, and that is in education. People are very clearly aware how the military has basically destroyed the educational opportunities of the people. The way how people learn today is extremely simple. That's why it's very easy for us to come to Myanmar, speak with the people, and find out that their intelligence and their knowledge are much different, whatever diplomatic word this is, than in the West. And it is exactly because the military has decided for this education. Not only that they have decided the manner of education, the so-called rote learning, they have to memorize, they are not allowed to think or to question or to ask anything, but also the military does not support education. Military support for education is one of the least in all of the world in Myanmar. So the education has very little support, very little financial support from the government. So the schools are very poor, learning is very poor, and the teachers, instead of teaching the children that what they know, they don't teach them what they know, and then they ask the children to follow so-called tuitions. Tuitions are paid, and they're extremely expensive. If the parents do not afford to pay the tuitions, which they cannot when they are poor, then the children cannot pass the exam because the teachers usually will give better mark to somebody who's following tuition. It's the same teacher who teaches in the main school, and the same teacher then also follows for the tuition which is paid. So if the students don't come for the tuition, sorry, they will not get a good mark. They may not pass at all. So it's poverty in food, it's poverty in life, it's poverty in education, and people know it. People have experienced it. With poverty in education, we are going back the same vicious cycle. There is poverty in food. Today, without education, without knowledge, how do you want to make good money? How do you want to be successful in business or in anything? In anything that makes a safe amount of money. So that's why the people don't like it. And that's why it's very important to study on the circumstances of the environment that we are talking about before writing. That's exactly what I'm afraid of, that I will sometimes write or say something like you said. It's just such a clear display of lack of knowledge. I think I forgot your main question.
No, I think it's such a wide angle question to answer. You're doing just fine. And I think you really hit the nail on the head that there are these things being said by people that don't really understand and are putting forth these views. And at the moment, we're talking about foreigners and foreign practitioners. We'll get to some of the Burmese Buddhist practitioners and monks in a moment, but just to be clear, we're talking at the moment of people that, as you say, have privilege. I'm really glad that you pointed that out. You're referencing that this is someone who is invested in a number of these freedoms that the people in Myanmar don't have, and are projecting this very simplistic reductionist view that however the life progresses, whatever individual freedoms you have or not, however the economy is, the basic practice of Buddhism is going to be preserved regardless. And this is also why I'm taking such a space to be able to talk about this view, because I think we need to reference and remember when these views come up and how they're expressed, and we need to take them head on. We need to respond to how is the practice of Buddhism different, not theoretically, but in actual practice during the times of harsh dictatorship and during the times of more open democracy, and look at in what ways were different things encouraged and in what ways were different things suppressed. And so I think being able to be clear and focused in what the difference and distinction is within the monastery, within the teachings, within the practice, within the Sangha, based on what the leadership is, I think this is very important to talk about. Otherwise, you just move into a field of spiritual bypassing where you say, this is not my concern, because the basic practice and tenets are going to be upheld no matter what. And no damage is going to be done, whoever the leader is. So this is something that doesn't have to involve me at all.
I want to encourage, however, anybody who's meditating intensively to really shut down. This is extremely important, regardless what's going on around. If somebody wants to meditate intensively, I don't believe, and I'm fully convinced, I don't believe that it would be possible, and I'm very convinced that it would not be possible to have at all any progress in meditation if there's any contact, any not necessarily thought, but any contact, um, um, any input from the outside regarding any kind of conflict or worry. Like if somebody wants to progress in meditation, they need to fully shut down. But as I've explained, there are people who are meditating intensively, and then there are people who are responsible for their safety and their peace. So those who are responsible need to know what's going on, and they need to care.
Right, and I agree with you fully with that. I also have friends, and again, I'm speaking more about foreigners at this time, but I have foreign meditator and monastic friends that through this period have gone through different times of intensive retreat and are not really up to date with the news and really not conversant at all in what's going on and not active in any way. And I fully take the view that you have. They are doing what they're supposed to be doing at that time. But it is different when you're looking at people that are have very much benefited from the spiritual teachings and practice that Myanmar has given them. They're not currently in intensive retreat, and they are currently out of the country in a great deal of safety. And that is something I don't really understand. You have taken on, you personally have taken on quite a bit of responsibility and care of how the current events are affecting people on the ground. And I think that's just something that when other foreign meditators and monastics who have benefited from being in the Golden Land and have a number of friends there and are now outside. I think some of those people, and I'm not speaking about the people in intensive retreat right now, but I think that some people still very much feel that connection and feel that bond. And as you said so eloquently at the beginning, this is the one chance that they've ever had to pay back that debt of gratitude. It's the one time ever in our lives that Myanmar has actually needed something from us instead of the other way around. And I think that one of the things you find, and I found this in my life previously when I've faced some hard times, you really learn the nature of someone and your friendship to them during the hardest periods in crisis that you would ever face. So when you are in the midst of something really terrible, really traumatic, really unexpected and painful, that is where you see people's real character come out. And that is also where you see people's true friendship and true feelings of warmth and commitment come. So it's interesting when you just go through normal life and you might think that you feel a certain way about someone or have a certain kind of relationship. that's all well and good, but it's only in those moments of crisis where you really see what people's true nature comes out and how they respond in those moments. And I think that the times we're living through now is definitely telling of that.
Yeah, as we are talking about it, I'm feeling like some people who may like listen to this recording, they may think like, oh, Ashin Sarana, he's like himself, he's putting himself into this danger, and he tries so hard, he's so brave. But no, I feel that I'm just doing what I need to do, and I'm not just absolutely not. I'm absolutely not doing what I can do. I'm doing the total minimum that I could ever stay without blaming myself for doing. The Burmese people, the bravery of the Burmese people in the battlefield, where only one side battles and the other side only runs away and protects themselves. Uh, uh, the Burmese people, the way how they are brave is, I don't know. I have never been in a battlefield, so it's like imagining what would I do if I became pregnant. Hey, sorry, it doesn't work for me, but I I believe that I can never ever compare my attitudes or my abilities of bravery to what they're doing. There's a video where a boy is shot in the middle of the street during these demonstrations, of course. And another boy is like talking to his friend, and he's saying, "Hey, I need to take the boy's body. I need to bring it here while the soldiers are shooting." And he says, "Hey, if I die, then make sure that my body is used for good purposes." And then he's going there, to take the body in the middle of the street, and then he drags the body to the side of the street. So how could I cannot imagine. I'm not sure that I would ever have that kind of bravery. One of our supporters, he said, "Venerable sir," like at night he sent to me a message. I read it too late. Next day in the morning, he sent to me a message, "Venerable sir, tomorrow I'm going to the first line. Please, I'm accepting your thoughts of loving kindness." That's how they do it. They do not ask a monk to radiate loving kindness for you. You already accepted that. You already accept that radiated loving kindness. So I said, "Venerable sir, tomorrow I'm going to the first line, and I'm accepting your thoughts of loving kindness." And the next day he went to the first line. Nothing happened to him, fortunately, but that's the Burmese people. They don't like go for demonstration. They go for the first line. They are so brave. They really know what they want, and they are ready to dedicate their lives for that. And they already dedicated their lives. Around 50 lives or more than 50 lives already were given for this cause. And I think that needs to be considered. Hey, 50 people died for this, what they wanted. Maybe it's not just about politics. Maybe there's something more to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to shift the focus to looking more at the Burmese side. And we have another question from a listener that wanted to ask at this point. She said, "People say that 50% of the Sangha think that Buddhism will be more protected by the military than by civilian rule. Can you explain that? What can be done to demonstrate the advantages of civilian government to those monks?"
Yes, this is the I'd say the test of my evil attitudes. How far Ashin Sarana is good, and isn't there at least a little bit of evil? Means evil here equals supporting the military. So isn't there at least a little bit of his support for the military? Um, So the problem has two sides. The problem has two sides, and I would like to make it very clear that the two sides are not separable. So what I'm going to say now will make many people who trust me totally disgusted, perhaps forever. But I want to make sure that both sides are inseparable. And that's why, even though one side might be one way, the other side totally eliminates anything of the first side. So what is it? So when the military has a rule over the country, there is no freedom. And when there is no freedom, it's easier to stick to beliefs. And it's more difficult to put forth doubt. Now, in religion, as every religion, and in science also, would you believe that? These days I study about science a lot. In science also, the only thing that keeps it together is belief. There would be no science if there was no belief. If Galileo thought, "Hey, we cannot test it, so it's useless. Therefore, we don't know. Let's put it aside," then he would never support the idea that indeed the Earth is revolving around the sun. So there is so much of belief necessary for upkeeping religion and science. Like today, maybe you have seen the beautiful book called Fantasy, Fashion, and Physics from Roger Penrose, who explains how much fantasy and fashion actually pervades science. So let's not keep it just for religion. Anything that you want to follow, any life philosophy is dependent on belief, and it is damaged, it is harmed by doubt. And for Buddhism, it is not different. As soon as the democracy started, as soon as the Aung San Suu Kyi came in, there was freedom of speech. And freedom of speech is extremely important for finding truth. It's not that good for maintaining a philosophy, but it's very good for finding truth. So now it depends on what you want. Do you want Buddhism as maintaining the scriptures and the beliefs of the great masters? Or do you want Buddhism rather in the sense that we think, we meditate, we experience, we find the truth, we discuss, and we really learn, we really progress towards the truth. So then we would have to divide Buddhism into two streams. One which would be the belief stream, and one which would be the let's say, the critical stream. I personally prefer the critical stream, but without the belief stream, it's not easy to follow the critical stream. We can see that in the West. I personally am very critical of the Western Buddhist scholars, extremely critical of Western Buddhist scholars who entirely rejected the belief stream, and they're just building up their criticism from top to bottom. So if the military was there, and when the military was there, the beliefs were preserved. There was a little bit of doubt. There always is a doubt. With 54 million people, there will always be statistically some amount of people who have suspicion or disbelief. But there was a very little of doubt, very little of attack against Buddhist ideas, very little of strange ideas and offensive ideas. When the freedom of speech started, not only that offensive and strange and wrong ideas started to crop up without anybody taking care or taking much care, actually a huge amount, and I could spend days telling you tales on what monks made up, but also the youth, the children, they stopped to go to monasteries, they started to follow the secular schools, and instead of being with Buddhism, they start to be with Facebook, with Instagram, with YouTube, with other Western, let's call them pleasures, which would not be available if the military regime continued. So the children today in Myanmar children, they do not know what is Buddhism. They have no idea what's going on in Buddhism. When they hear Nibbana, they shake by fear, because they feel that Nibbana is the destruction of their self. Again, they don't know what is Buddhism, so of course they get these wrong understanding. They have no understanding from monks' speech. When they listen to monks talking, they don't understand them, because they don't know these Pali terms, and these special technical terms in Buddhism. Hard to tell whether they're technical, but to make it simple, technical terms, special slang in Buddhism used by monks is not known to the young people today. And I believe that it's exactly because of this, that uh, they are they have to face, they have to pay attention to all this huge influence coming from the West. So they don't have that much time to go to a monastery or to listen to a monk or to care about their culture or religion. So this is how the military can protect the belief stream of Buddhism. But this is just the one side that I have mentioned. Then there's the second side that we already talked about, and that is when there's the military. Unfortunately, because this is not the nice fairy tale king, who gives everybody whatever they want. Unfortunately, this military, as we have seen in 1988 and 2007, we've seen that this military does not care about the people, and they will make the people poor, as is the way how they want to exist. They put large portion of the budget to military and little portion of the budget to the country, and that's the way how they need to work. That's how they support their existence as military when they're in the power. So it's very natural. I totally accept that this is the way how they should do it, but why should they have the opportunity to do it this way? So unfortunately, the second side is that when the military is there, the people will be poor. The people have no freedom of speech. They will be poor in both food and in their education, and therefore they will not be able to support monks in the way they could otherwise. And therefore, the quality of the monks, the quality of the monastic education, and of course, from the Western point of view, the quality of the monk's wisdom will be very, very poor. I do not think that there is any way how the military could support Buddhism in the way how Buddha taught it. They can support it in the way how people believe it, but not in the way how the Buddha taught it. That means the experiential discussing open, wise attitude, wise approach.
Right. Wow, that's that was really incredible. That was quite a treat to hear you talk about those 2 sides. I don't know what to ask next. I'm still just kind of contemplating that whole expose that you delivered. It's a lot to think about. I think I need, more than a moment to be able to process all that and fit it in my own understanding and think about where I wanna go next with that exploration. So I think I'll probably have to just take a pause on all that information you gave and continue thinking about it before I think of how to follow up because that's very interesting. I guess one thing I'm thinking as I hear it now is it sounds like you're saying that you're acknowledging that according to different kinds of rules, different kinds of leadership in the country, there are different priorities and benefits to the practice and the monkhood. Um, and you're acknowledging that. And yet you're also acknowledging that the benefit that's being provided by the free thought promoted by a democracy is something that is really essential to the growth and practice of Buddhism, which I agree. So, and I also agree that as the country opens up and there are more personal freedoms and opportunities, that they are also faced with certain distractions. And those distractions I was speaking to someone yesterday, and the way she put it was quite interesting. She said, look, like if you wanted to ordain as a monk 20, 30 years ago, the difference in lifestyle between villager and monastic was really not that much. But given how fast everything has advanced in the country, you are now being asked to renounce much, much more than you ever did before. And that is certainly affecting the division between, she said, the gap between the monkhood and the lay people was growing based on the opportunities that were there. And certainly, I also see some of that erosion. Yet at the same time, I have to look at where we sit, again, somewhat privileged as foreigners, that we are coming into a traditional culture, and it was traditional several decades ago, not by choice, but by suffocating, to use your words, by suffocating regulations that provided no opportunity, no hope of any kind. And through that suffocation, there was kind of this artificial paralysis that was placed on the religion that was called a protection, but it was really just kind of like a frozen in time kind of paralysis that allowed for no change of any kind to happen. And when I hear foreigners that have been to monasteries before and after the 2012 reforms, some of them wax nostalgic a little bit on how things were traditional before. And I definitely I can understand that point of view. I also understand what you're talking about greater distractions with a country that's opening up. But I also think it's an incredibly privileged and problematic place to be in, where we're speaking from a place of privilege, where we have these opportunities and freedoms in our own country, and one would want to limit the access to these basic rights just for the pleasure of being able to travel back in time into a traditional culture. No, the culture has to open up. The opportunities have to be there. The Buddha's teachings were never about limiting or refusing or preventing or running away from or keeping outside certain influences of modern society. They were about interacting with those in healthy ways and restraining the senses so that you develop detachment to them. So I guess the question is, where all this is coming to, is how can we have the best of both worlds? How can we have a world where we do have freedom and stability and opportunities and economy and the basic personal liberties, how that encourage the free thought and the critical thinking, and knowing that this is going to cause profound changes in society, how can the teachings adapt to this new kind of context? This is not new. Burmese Buddhism has done this many times over the past several decades and centuries. It has had enormously charismatic and learned and dynamic and wise monks who have found ways to adapt those timeless teachings to a context that is changing rapidly. And so I guess the way I look at it, and I'm curious how you would look at it, is that having those personal freedoms are so important for a society, and they do open up other influences, they open up the critical thought. How can you retain the importance of the monkhood in these teachings without being afraid of having to shut everything down and just stay in this timeless state where basic rights are denied?
Um, there's one thing, I don't think it's secret, but I'm pretty sure that you haven't seen it and you may like to appreciate this information. It is coming from the great Mengon Siador, the great master who has memorized all of or is believed to memorize all of the three Pitakas. He's in the Guinness Book for having memorized all of the pages in all of the three Pitakas. There are people who doubt whether he really did memorize all of them, but in Myanmar, it is really believed he memorized all of those 40 books of the Pitaka. And Mengon Seattle, this is, I believe it's related to our topic very much. Mengon Seattle in 1988, that was the first real problem time. He has written a statement. He has written a statement. It's in Burmese. It's typed on a typewriter. And I am so lucky to have received it. And of course, not to avoid my periodic boasting, I am very happy to understand it in its original Burmese. So I will tell you in brief what's there, and if there is a large desire or a large big wish for me to translate, I can happily translate it. It's short. It's not too long, not very short though. And he made a statement on the situation that was happening in 1988. So I need to repeat that this was the first time with the military when it was bloody. So what did Mengon Sayadaw say? Mengon Sayadaw said, I do not know anything about politics. I do not understand anything about politics. Therefore, I want to avoid saying anything about politics, and therefore I am going to the forest and I will stay in silence. So Mengon Sayadaw, not only that he didn't do anything with the present situation, not only that he would just stop teaching, but he left. Basically, Myanmar lost the best, the most knowledgeable monk of all during the problem that has happened with military. So I think this is a beautiful example on what happens when there's the military role with Buddhism. When the military starts to apply their force, then Buddhism stops. It stops. It doesn't work. So you certainly remember those years when there was a big problem in 2007. It was actually prohibited for foreigners to come into Myanmar. So Buddhism stopped. There's no space for monks to give Dhamma talks to people, to teach Dhamma, to do big things, like establish meditation centers and so on, when the military is applying their force against the hungry people who don't like to be hungry. So the idea that Buddhism could thrive when the military is here is not working at all, because when the military is applying their so-called abilities, Buddhism basically disappears for that period. It's just not possible to spread and to preserve the Buddha's teachings. You yourself have published a photo of a Buddha statue shot, basically damaged by gunshot, and there we could see in Bagan that army was waiting in Bagan. And there are many hidden things, in the uncharted history of the military role, such as that people during the Bagan time, the military wanted to have more money from tourism, so they basically removed all residents from the historical sites of Bagan, so that they can make it a tourist place. So all of these people simply, they lost their houses. This is not Western government. This is Myanmar military. They remove people and they don't care where the people go. The people have just nothing. They just come with the gun. Sorry, bye, goodbye. Now you go, finished. It's not like they will tell in TV after 1 month, please remove yourself. We'll give you some compensation. No, not at all. They'll come to the house with a gun, say, so you go, or we shoot you. That's the way how they do it. So this is what happened during military. We will not know it, because at that time, people, of course, I can hear things, but we cannot know, we cannot have the evidence, because people didn't have phones at those times. So they couldn't take videos of what really happened. But military role is the worst thing that can ever be there for the development and peaceful practice of Buddhism, and for the thriving of the great monks. You were talking about these great monks. That's what I was thinking about. Hey, in 1950 and like this, there was this great 60, the Sixth Buddhist Council, and there were these great monks. But during the time when there was the military, these monks didn't do anything special, anything big. We know that there was Truman Sayadaw, he made a monastery, but that also was not like something like spreading the teachings in a big way. It was only when the military stopped their dictatorship a little, so that the foreigners can come and Shomen Zero could really spread the teachings.
Right, right. So that's a really powerful way to put it. I mean, you are really painting a picture of how much Buddhism, Dhamma teachings, meditation is at threat itself by what is currently happening with this coup. So, my question for you, so I should tell you, my original question for you is I wanted to ask you what you feel the role of the overall monkhood was at this time. And I would want to emphasize that question given what you've just said, that given the real threat that there is to the expansion and spread and survival of the sasana and of the Buddhist teachings, given this, it is even more of a dramatic question. However, I want to revise the way I'm asking it because you've already said a couple times that you're differentiating between what monks are doing what. There's monks that have responsibilities. There's monks that are in intensive meditation. There's monks that are in some kind of teaching or learning capacity inside and outside the country. Obviously, there's all kinds of monasteries and monks and sayadaws and such. So I want to revise the question to focus specifically on those monks that have a certain level of responsibility, those monks that are in position of responsibility and caring for others in some way, instructing others. So to that smaller, more elite responsible group of monks, given the threat that they are facing in their practice and religion based on the coup and the potential military rule, what do you feel is their responsibility right now?
I think they, number one, they need to give the people that what they want, and that is my favorite word, solace. And solace means, according to the dictionary, it means the act of consoling, giving relief in affliction. That's exactly what I mean. So, or it has another meaning, the comfort you feel when consoled in times of disappointment. I think that's exactly what the people expect from monks. People will do the demonstrate. They will do whether they want or whether they can or whether it's okay. That I don't think I can do anything with this, but people will do the demonstrations. They will continue doing demonstrations. They will continue showing their will, and they will continue defy the rebels who are occupying the government premises. But the monks need to provide the people with peace. Like the people go to this unlawful, unrightful battlefield created by those rebels, and they need energy, they need support, they need happiness, so that they see some purpose. Like they see that now what's coming is just terror, and they already know it from the very beginning. There's nothing else coming than terror, and there can be long-term terror or there can be short-term terror, and they have decided to go through the short-term terror instead of the long-term terror. Hopefully you still can understand me. And when the monks speak to the lay people, when they deal, and of course monks have their Facebook accounts and they do deal with people. Now, I think the number one responsibility of monks is to provide the people with happiness, with peace. The monks themselves need to be the exemplary for this peaceful mind. They need to show the people that, hey, peaceful mind still exists in the world, and this is exactly what you can have, and lead the people, support, help them in having peace, in having happiness, because that is what will give them energy and happiness to continue in striving for that what they believe is the best.
And how do you feel the response has been thus far from what you've seen of those monks charged with responsibility? What have you seen in terms of the response that has been given, and what would you like to see moving forward?
I think that they want to survive. They want to survive. And therefore, they keep quiet. I believe that there are many monks who work hard to support the people in their demonstrations directly. So they actually join those demonstrations. And the monks who are the most responsible, who are not just responsible for a monastery, but who are responsible for Myanmar country, for Buddhism in Myanmar, what they have done, I don't know. They have done something that I know, that's true, but it's not relevant to your question. What these great monks, what the most famous and most important monks in Myanmar, or some of them have done, is that they have directly requested the rebels in the government premises, as I call the military, they have requested them to hand the government back to the legally elected parties, and of course release the political prisoners. And number one, I'm going 3-2. Now, number one point is to stop the violence, to stop the massacres on the streets. As I've already mentioned, the Buddha apparently has suggested that we do not ask a person who kills not to kill. As you can see, it's exactly what happened. Nothing happened. I don't know whether the military then arrested some of the monks. We perhaps cannot know, but nothing happened. It's basically talking to the dark without anybody listening. So the monks do try. What the monks do, they release statements. We're already talking about statements at a different discussion. Monks do release statements, and that provides people with happiness and with peace. But what they do themselves in their monasteries, that I don't know. I've heard of Pauk Sero and Sero Shinamda Malapivangsa. In Myanmar, they know him as Pa Chosiado. They have reportedly prohibited military from entering their monastery premises. And I think that part of their prohibiting the military from entering their monastery is prohibiting themselves from entering online social media. I think the most responsible monks, what they do in order to stop supporting the monastery, both in the way that they would join them, and also in the way that they would support the military's idea of protecting the country by getting imprisoned. I think that these great monks, they simply decided, hey, we don't play this game. We don't play this game, and that's it. So they closed up the monasteries, turned off their phones. That I don't know, that's how I feel it. They turned off their phones, they logged out of their social media, and they're gone. And that's exactly what I would expect from a military regime, that simply that the Buddhism shuts down while the military is there.
Right. So a follow-up question to that actually came from a Facebook user again. This kind of fits naturally into what you were saying. You mentioned that it's that monks should not tell people not to kill, but his question is, he said, shouldn't all the Sangha unanimously admonish the military's wrong actions to kill the protesters and preach the consequences of killing? So this is a different way to approach that, where you're not telling people what to do and not do, but you're just speaking very clearly on the dangers, karmically, ethically, of proceeding with certain unwholesome actions.
Yes, that's actually the way how I'm writing my posts on Facebook these days. I don't think that all monks will do something. You know, in Myanmar, all monks do whatever whatever they think is good, and they are different in their ideas. But there was a little imprecision in how you have understood what I have said. It's not that we do not ask people to not kill. No, it's actually our duty that we ask people not to kill, not to steal, not to commit adultery, not to tell lies, not to drink alcohol. This is our duty, and it's like we have 6 duties, and this is number 1 duty, that we ask people to avoid doing evil. What I said is that we do not ask this a person who's doing it. So a person who's killing should not be said, don't kill. A person who's stealing should not be said, don't steal. So it's about the timing, like say not do not kill at the time when the person has not yet started to, killing. Like warn them about what's going on, what's right, what's wrong, and help them avoid starting that kind of thing.
Right. So, also connected to that, monks are separate from worldly society. They're not supposed to engage in politics or worldly affairs directly. And yet, at the same time, they do have this kind of moral authority to assert where it's needed. So, as someone like yourself who is just so knowledgeable and careful with Vinaya, that's the monk's code, the monastic discipline for those that don't know, and you're very assiduous and careful about following this, and yet you're also very concerned about what's happening in this present moment. How do you navigate your own role in figuring out what you should do now? How do you try to figure out what is appropriate to Vinaya and what is appropriate for your care and love of those people around you?
I personally do not take this as politics. Like, as soon as monks involve themselves in politics, I suggest that in most cases, if not all, it is not about politics, but it's about ethics. And it's any time. I think it would be very rare that my theory would not work. Most of the times, whenever monks become either interested or engaged or supportive of any political decisions, I think in most of the times, or all of the times, it would not be because of political reasons, but because of ethical reasons. So that's how I take it. So my number one duty is to, I have 6 duties given by the Buddha. All monks have those 6 duties. Number one, I have to help people understand what's wrong and support them in not doing what's wrong. Number two, I have to help people understand what's right and support them in doing what's right. Number three, I have to pervade them by loving kindness. Number four, I have to teach them the Dhamma, the true Buddha's teachings, which they haven't heard yet. Number five, I have to teach them the true Buddha's teachings, which they already have heard, so they remember it better and understand it better. Number six, I have to show them path to heaven. And here we can play with the interpretation, or at least the monks do, that the path to Nibbana at some portions of the scripture seems to be actually more preferable than path to heaven, because if somebody doesn't attain Nibbana, most probably they will go to heaven anyway. So these are my 6 duties. And when I study the politics, I'm basically studying the ethics. I'm not interested so much about what's going on politically. I'm interested in what's going on ethically. And that's indeed true. So whenever I watch these videos and this thing, I'm not considering it like whether the military is trying to keep this country together or making it a federation, or there's a danger that some of the minorities will split out. I'm not thinking like maybe they want to do genocide or like this. I'm not that much searching for these things. I'm more interested in how's the ethics going on and how does that touch on me as somebody who speaks to crowds of hundreds of thousands of people sometimes in the social media. And when there is a problem and I need to express my opinion because people ask me questions and then they share my answers here and there. So I need to know what's really going on, and I need to avoid spreading fake news or saying nonsense ideas, such as the idea that maybe it doesn't matter whether the military governs or whether the democracy governs. This would be I would make many people disgusted about foreigners following Buddhism as a representative of foreign monks. So I need to know these things. I need to understand them, and I believe that I need to study these things more in terms of ethics rather than as politics, and understand what is helpful for the people's happiness and for the people's practice of Dhamma, and what is not. So there is one thing in the scriptures that you may like to know, and that people who are still doubtful about whether monks are really allowed to talk about politics. So I a little bit exaggerate when I say that Venerable Moggallana talked about politics. But you will have to bear with me. When the king of Magadha, when he waged war against the Vajjayans won. So the king Magadha, he lost. And at that time, they didn't have Facebook or like that you could reload news. But they had a drummer or a gong player who would go in the street and they would beat the gong or play the drum, and then they would shout out what actually happened. So a drummer went like this in the street, and he was shouting that the king of Magadha lost in the battle against Vajjayans. And so the monks, they heard it, and they were talking among themselves. Monks were talking about themselves, about politics. What did they say? They said, hey guys, do you know that the king Magadha lost in the battle against Vajjayans? Something absolutely useless. This is pure politics, nothing else. And then Venerable Moggallana, the great arahant, who's believed to have great psychic powers, he came to these monks and he said, no guys, in fact, the king Magadha won over Vajjayans. So think about it, like the monks, they're talking about politics. You don't like it? Fine. But an arahant, a Moggallana, not only that he thinks about politics, not only that he knows about politics, not only that he would be talking about politics, but he was not invited. Nobody asked Venerable Moggallana for his idea. Nobody said, hey, Venerable Moggallana, do you know that what happened and so on? No, he came up himself. And he stopped the monks in their discussion. He said, hey, guys, you are wrong. The politics is different. And there it doesn't end. Venerable Moggallana told them that the king Magadha won, and the monks, they were really disappointed. And as you would expect from me, they were not disappointed because Venerable Moggallana would be talking about politics. They were disappointed that Venerable Moggallana would know about politics something more than they did. And they were so disappointed that they thought that Venerable Moggallana just wants to boast that he has psychic powers. Perhaps you have experienced this, sometimes when people are talking about something, like tomorrow is raining, then somebody comes up, without knowing anything, and he says, no, I know it, tomorrow is not raining. So that kind of boasting with psychic powers that the person does not have. So these monks, they were really disappointed that Venerable Moggallana is now boasting with psychic power, which he certainly doesn't have, because it's very obvious that the king Magadha lost. So what did the monks do? Not only that they would like say, they didn't say like, hey, we are talking about politics, this is useless, let's go meditate. No way. They went to see the Buddha and asked the Buddha about politics. So we have here quite a lot of people involved in politics. They went to see the Buddha and they said, oh Buddha, do you know the king Magadha, he lost with the Vajjayans. And then this Venerable Moggallana came and he is boasting with psychic powers which he doesn't have and says that the king Magadha won. And now you would say, well, certainly the Buddha just told them, hey guys, you're talking about politics. Stop this and go meditate. But you're hearing this from Ashin Sarana, so of course this is not the way it happened. So when they told this to the Buddha in fact supported the talk about politics, and he said, Venerable Moggallana is true. And then the Buddha told them what exactly happened. The Buddha gave them the political news. What did he say? He said it in detail. And this is a portion that I memorized as portion of my memorizing of the Parajika Pali book. So the Buddha said, monks, first, the king Magadha, he lost in the war with Vajjayans. Then the king Magadha collected all of the troops that were available. Then he went to the war with Vajjayans again and defeated them. Venerable Moggallana is true, and there is no offense for Venerable Moggallana. Can you imagine that? The scriptures are showing us that not only the monks were talking about politics, but even Arahant Venerable Moggallana by himself came up and started to talk about politics. The Buddha then supported the talk about politics by continuing the information what actually happened, and nobody incurred an offense against Vinaya. So this doesn't mean that monks should talk about Vinaya, right? This is a different extreme that I absolutely accept. In no way monks should not talk about politics. But when it matters, it is necessary to know what's going on so that monks can make the necessary solution. For example, if the king Magadha lost, then there could be an update that the Vachians actually are going to kill everybody in the monastery, so the monks could evacuate themselves somewhere else. So I do not support talking about politics when it doesn't matter. Now, let's imagine that I would talk to you about kings in middle-aged Czech Republic. So that would be exactly the kind of politics that I believe monks should never ever talk about. It's irrelevant. But when it is relevant, those monks who are responsible for monasteries, I believe that they should know what's going on. And if they can help to prevent evil, if they can support the ethics of both those in the power and those who have to listen to those in the power, then I believe monks should support the ethics, and they should remind good people about what to do, what's right.
Thank you for that. That's really a wonderful, detailed explanation that goes into a lot of background and I think clarifies some points. Uh, so, lastly, in our discussion, and I really appreciate all the time you're taking, I think this is incredibly valuable. I want to move to this letter that you wrote. And towards the end of the letter, you mentioned the importance of the world outside of Myanmar paying attention and caring. You gave a specific example of how protesters were switching their signs from Burmese to English because they wanted the world to know what they were doing. At the moment, I'm sure that many of our audience is listening. Many of them are meditators, some are tuning in out of interest in Myanmar. But regardless, they're following along with this, and many of them just feel sick, feel hopeless, feel upset, and deeply concerned and troubled by what's happening, but they also feel helpless. They don't know what they can do at this time. They don't know what an ordinary person is supposed to do. Many of them many of those who are practicing are after their practices are thinking specifically about the people in Myanmar and directing their metta towards them, but they also feel somewhat limited and helpless in what they can do. And yet, in your letter, you called attention to how important it is that foreigners do pay attention and involve themselves in what's going on. So, my question to you is what can they do? What role can they play? You're speaking to an audience of many of them right now. What would you like to tell them about what role they can play to help out at this time?
Please continue. Continue in everything that you've been doing now for the good of Myanmar. Continue in that. Just continue, because things are changing. Things are happening. Things are improving. Some parts get worse. Some parts get better. At this moment, I can say nothing, and I have no psychic powers. I tell you now, you see, you have it recorded, so you can show it to anybody anytime. I don't know how it will be tomorrow, certainly not tomorrow as well, but for a few years, I'm sure I will not have any psychic powers. And now, 100%, I have no psychic powers, so I don't know what's coming in the future. But I know one thing that we don't know. I don't know. That's for myself, I can say for sure. I don't know what will happen. I don't know whether the military will get the role or whether the military will leave. There are possibilities that the generals will run away, which we saw already in the past, and it's true. It's possible that the minority armies will either very much or somewhat considerably damage the Burmese military's um, whatever barracks or whatever are their areas and their equipment. So it's possible that the military will really fail and they will have to retreat. It is also possible that they will not retreat. I don't know. There are things every day happening all around the world. Like yesterday in Malaysia, suggested that Myanmar is kicked out of ASEAN until the military junta is occupying the government premises. And other things are happening. The UN is preparing some, I don't know whether you call it indictment, or they want to call the generals to the International Criminal Court. So things are really happening. I don't know how far this is going, but I want to encourage everybody to continue in their best efforts for the benefit of Myanmar, because there is, I say, I who has no powers and who knows nothing, I say that there's 50% chance that the people will succeed. So, but it really, we all need to continue. We all need to continue. There is still a large hope that things will get right. Just continue doing exactly that, what you've been doing good, whatever you've been doing. Hopefully all of you have been doing something. Whatever you've been doing, something good, encouraging the people, pacifying the people, providing them with solace, giving them energy, containing, joining the demonstrations, joining the civil disobedience movement, praising the CRPH, praising the UN, whatever you have been doing, applying influence to China, whatever you've been doing good for Myanmar, please continue that. Whatever you've been doing good for Myanmar, that's of course, in the limits of the 5 precepts, please continue that and continue that as long as, as long as your life lasts, as long as possible, because there is a high probability, that's what I believe, there's a high probability that this can succeed, and I believe that it is worth it. I don't think that a single life is worth this, but lives are already lost, and I don't know how to deal with that. Like, so should you continue this? Like, if I knew that if you don't continue this, then lives will not be lost in the demonstrations, but if you continue it, then lives will be lost, then I would say, but that's not true, because the military kills anyway. The military will maybe not kill the Burmese people, but they will go to the ethnic minorities and they will start their massacres there, as they did during the military rule. So it's not true that you would save lives by not going to demonstrations. It's just that different lives would be saved. So I don't want to provide any word for this. I personally cherish life very much of every living being. And I don't want to join in this, but whatever is the good that we can do from our side, supporting, following the 5 precepts for everybody, supporting everybody in their good deeds, in their protecting of the freedom, protecting of democracy, protecting of their rights, of their basic human rights, which is what I understand under democracy. That we need to join. How to say that? We need to get together. We need to do it. Everybody who's hearing this, everybody who knows about the Myanmar issue, please join. Please help. Please do whatever you know. Again, in the limits of 5 precepts, that can support the people either psychologically or physically, or in terms of the final aim.
Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And we were talking about the individuals. How about the greater organizations? How about outside of Myanmar, monasteries, Buddhist societies, meditation organizations? Do you feel that these have a role in this time to take some kind of moral stand, to take some kind of action? If so, what?
They will need to assess their capabilities and their safety. So, as we could see, there were groups of learned masters, learned Burmese masters, who issued statements, suggesting to the military the 3 points. Number 1, no more violence, please. Number 2, release the political prisoners. Number 3, respect the elections from November 9, 2020. But I think they're like groups, they're very carefully assigned as groups instead of one person. And each person, each monk, each monastery needs to assess their abilities and their safety. So if they feel, hey, we can issue a statement, I believe that's a good opportunity to issue a statement. If they cannot do it, then please at least accept the people who are coming to you and who are sharing with you the suffering that they're going through, and provide them with peace, provide them with some kind of relief, allow them to tell whatever they have to tell. If they want to cry, allow them to cry as much as they cry, and be there with them, shine all your loving kindness power and compassion power, whatever it is that you have ever accrued throughout your monastic life, towards those people, and give them this happiness, give them this opportunity to be happy, at least at the moment when they visit the monasteries or when they speak to the monk or a nun.
Thank you. Thank you again for that. Those are very impassioned words and very inspiring, and those messages will go out to many people, I hope. So, I think at this point, I've covered everything that I've wanted to ask. I really appreciate the time that you've taken. And before we go, I know that you're engaged in a lot of what is happening there. You're pouring your own heart into it. So, is there anything that I haven't covered in my questions or my talk that you want to make sure to get out now?
I think we could cover the good thing. I've tried to cover it title just a little bit, but I think it was not enough. We need to remember the good thing, of the Burmese people, the Burmese character, the Burmese abilities of the Burmese people, the Burmese intelligence and wisdom and patience as number one, are something that really should never be missed from any interview about the present Myanmar situation. The the powers of the people in terms of patience are, you know, I could, like, if you told it to me that there is a people like this, I would think, no, certainly you are telling me a fairy tale. But it's incredible how these people are patient. Like, I've read it in one of the articles that you have published. That was very nice that the article mentioned it. Like, the people, like, they could steal the guns from the police, and they could shoot into the police. They could destroy their cars. They could puncture the tires in their vehicles. They could simply arrest. The people could arrest the soldiers. There are times when the soldiers or the police, like, really can do nothing, and there's so many of them, and they do nothing of that. They do nothing. Yes, of course, we see in very rare instances, we see them throwing stones at the police, but what is that, in comparison to the police shooting into the people by their guns? There's no way. And the police, they have these shields, which they can easily use to protect themselves against the stones, whereas the people have no bulletproof vests, to protect themselves, and no bulletproof helmets and masks, because the police shoot into their heads, not into their chests. So this is incredible how the Burmese people are inventive, and they try their best to find peaceful methods to continue only to just say what they wish. That's all what they do. They just explain, hey, we want to get this person released, hey, we want these elections. That's all what they want to say, and nothing else. They are not damaging the police or military positions. They are not invading. They are not harming them. They are not doing anything at all even after they are killed, after they are beaten, after they are rudely beaten, after they are imprisoned for no reason, after the police shoots into their windows, after the police damages their vehicles, regardless who is the owner of the vehicles, after the police invades into their home and just randomly arrest people who are in homes. Even though this happens, the people stay patient and they continue in their peaceful demonstrations. This is incredible. This is something that, even if the UN doesn't care that there are people killed, even if the UN or ASEAN or anybody else doesn't care whether there is military or somebody governing, at least help the people by considering how much they avoid any violence at all, only as appreciation of the people's nonviolence. The people of Myanmar deserve 100% effort and action from all the international community.
Right. And I think that this goes back to what I said a little bit ago, that it's really only during a time of a crisis or a breakdown that you truly get to see someone's inner character and uh, your friendship to them as well. And I think that that's true on an individual level. And I think that what we're seeing now, this is rewriting the history of the world in terms of what protests can be, the unity, the good, wholesome qualities that are coming from the side of the protesters. And I think that, however Myanmar has been understood or misunderstood through the years, this is their true character coming out now in the face of a terror that no one sitting listening to this could ever contemplate what they would do or how they would be if they were in that moment. And so I think as we're seeing the response on the ground, this is that true character and strength of the Burmese people, which is just taking our breath away, which is just something that we almost can't believe, as you say, is real in the world, that in situations and circumstances as these, they can respond the way that they are over and over again. So with that, I think we've come to a good stopping point. So I really appreciate the time, the courage, the eloquence that you've brought here. I know how much you're holding, I know how much you're doing. It's meant the world to me, and I think it also means the world to our listeners. And we send our best wishes to you and to your health, to your well being, and the gratitude for everything that you're doing for those people close around you and those people that are a bit further away, but who you are speaking for in their welfare.
Thank you very much for this great opportunity. As I've already told you in a message, I believe that any interview in the sense, any effort that you are doing for disseminating, or how to say that, for spreading the information of what exactly is happening, and applying a kind of urgency, applying a kind of a kind of pressure on your audience to support the matter. You happen to help 54 million people. So whatever further efforts in this direction, not just from you but any of the listeners, are very much needed, and I thank you very much that I could participate in this one.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to this show. I understand that this is an enormously difficult time for many people these days, myself included. And just the mere fact of staying informed is helping to keep a focus on this pertinent issue. And the only way that we can do our job of continuing to provide this content at this very critical time is through the support of generous donors, listeners like yourselves. So if you found this episode of value and would like to see more shows like this on the current crisis, please consider making a donation to support our efforts. Either monthly pledges or one-time donations are fully appreciated, and all funds go immediately into the production of more episodes like this one. Thank you deeply in advance, and best wishes at this time. If you would like to join in our mission to share the Dhamma from the Golden Land more widely, we welcome your contribution in any form, currency, or transfer method. Every cent goes immediately and directly to sustaining the programming. You can give right on our website via credit card by going to insightmyanmar.org/donation or through PayPal by going to paypal.me/insightmyanmar. We also take donation through Patreon, Venmo, GoFundMe, and Cash App. In all cases, simply search Insight Myanmar on each platform and you'll find our account. Alternatively, you can also visit our website for specific links to any of these respective accounts, or feel free to email us at info@insightmyanmar.org. In all cases, that's Insight Myanmar, one word, spelled INSIGHTMYANMAR. If you would like to give in another way, please contact us. Thank you for your kind consideration. You have been listening to the Insight Myanmar podcast. We would appreciate it very much if you would be willing to rate, review, and/or share this podcast. Every little bit of feedback helps. If you're interested, you can also subscribe to the Insight Myanmar podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever else you get your podcasts. Also, please check out our website for a list of our complete episodes, including additional text, videos, and other information. All of it is available at insightmyanmar.org. If you cannot find our feed on your podcast player, please let us know and we'll assure that it can be offered there in the future. There certainly was a lot to talk about in this episode, and we'd like to encourage listeners to keep the discussion going. Make a post, request a specific question, and join in on discussions on our Insight Myanmar podcast Facebook group. You are also most welcome to follow our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter accounts by the same name. If you're not on Facebook, you can also message us directly at info@insightmyanmar.org. If you'd like to start up a discussion group on another platform, let us know, and we can share that platform here. Finally, we're open to suggestions about guests or topics for future episodes, so if you have someone or something in mind, please do be in touch. We would like to take this time to thank everyone who made this podcast possible. Currently, our team consists of 2 sound engineers, Martin Combs and Tharng A. There's of course Zach Hessler, content collaborator and part-time co-host, Ken Pransky helps with editing, and a special Mongolian volunteer who was asked to remain anonymous does our social media templates. In light of the ongoing crisis in Myanmar, a number of volunteers have stepped up to lend a hand as well, so we'd like to take this time to appreciate all of their efforts in our time of need. We'd also like to thank everyone who assisted us in arranging for the guests who have interviewed so far. And of course, we send a big thank you to the guests themselves for agreeing to come and share such powerful personal stories. Finally, we're immensely grateful for the donors who made this entire thing possible. We also remind our listeners that the opinions expressed by our guests on this show are their own, and not necessarily reflective of the host or other podcast contributors. Please also note, as we are mainly a volunteer team, we do not have the capacity to fact-check our guest interviews. By virtue of being invited on our show, there's a trust that they will remain truthful and not misrepresent themselves or others. If you have any concerns about the statements made on this or other shows, please contact us. This recording is the exclusive right of Insight Myanmar podcast and may not be used without the expressed written permission of the podcast owner, which includes video, audio, written transcripts, or excerpts of any episode. It is also not meant to be used for commercial purposes. On the other hand, we are very open to collaboration, so if you have a particular idea in mind for sharing any of our podcasts or podcast-related information, please feel free to contact us with your proposal. If you would like to support our mission, we welcome your contribution. You may give by searching Insight Myanmar on PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, GoFundMe, and Patreon, as well as via credit card on our page at insightmyanmar.org/donation. And with that, we're off to work on the next show, so see you next episode.